Welcome to Vlog Thursday 427, and I got a guest.
Yes. Hey, everyone.
Bearded IT Dad. Occasionally you see him in the comments, or you can see him on YouTube on his own channel, and he's come from the West Coast to the Midwest, and here in Detroit, we're winging it here. We might do, and this is what I want to put at the beginning, because some people only watch the beginning and decide if they want to watch the rest. But so at the beginning here, leave some comments. Let us know if we should do a live stream, maybe Saturday or Sunday, focused on something he's an expertise in, is IT career stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I always focus on like career advice and trying to help people enter the field. So I'm always more than happy to share advice on just the industry in general and like as a career path.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that absolutely we have no problem talking about, and he's an expert. So we don't know because we're very agenda free. Other than tomorrow, we're going to go hang out at my office in Toledo. So we're going to do that tomorrow and just have generally a good time. And he wants to see Detroit, so and I like showing off Detroit because not many people come to visit Detroit. It's not really a destination vacation place. Yeah. It's if someone's going, I'm going on vacation, it's not Detroit on their top picks. So we may do a live stream though about that. Let us know in comments down below. But while we're here, we're going to do this for about 45 minutes because food is the next agenda item. So as much as I love talking to all of you, but yeah, this is just another fun live stream. Oh, if anyone's wondering why I'm wearing a badge, and maybe some of you noticed the live stream because some of you knew me from YouTube. I was at an event in Detroit put on by Huntress. Huntress has got their Huntress Roadshow for people interested where they go drop some knowledge on you. It's free. I don't know. They might be coming to a city near you. If you type in Huntress Roadshow, you can find it. Not sponsored by Huntress, they're just friends of mine. And so I'm not on stage at all of them. I just happen to be on stage here at the one in Detroit. Me and my business partner, Jason Slagle. We dropped some knowledge, answered some questions, and swore a little bit, made people laugh. So we never ask if we can use profanity. We just started using profanity because it seemed like the crowd pleaser. But yeah, so whatever questions you have, if you have IT career questions also, by the way, throw them in the comments over here. But awesome. Good seeing that people are joining in. We got, about 75 people to start here. I'm going to take the badge off because it's going to jiggle and make noise and need to stop there. What else? I don't know. I'm just combobulated. We've just been having a good conversation between us because the first time he's ever been to Detroit.
Yeah, first time off the West Coast.
First time off the West Coast.
Yeah.
He's in a different time zone now.
I know. Three hours ahead. Gosh, yeah. That really kind of messed me up on the flight here. You're like, man, I lost so much time.
Well, that's the thing too. I was trying to figure out when he was telling me when he was going to land. I was like, "Are you giving me your time or my time?" So whenever you're traveling across, like if you're not from this time zone, are you telling me what time you'll be there in your time zone or mine? I know what time to go to the airport. And as those you know, I live really close to the airport, so it's a short drive.
But yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. You know, this has been kind of just was on a whim thing, and you know, it's really cool to see like how you do everything and stuff. And I'm really excited to see the offices and everything. So
yeah, you know, I give tours of my studio, and it's funny. I've met several people that have messaged me from YouTube. My friend Mike, he turns out Mike lives like 3 miles from me. And so that's been kind of interesting. Like sometimes I just get messages from people on YouTube. Matter of fact, another guy that was here, I won't say his name because I don't know what he is on the level of privacy, but he was someone I knew from the 90s. Really? He leaves his comment. He's like, "Hey, Tom, do you remember me from blah, blah, blah?" I guess he did say his name in the comments. So his name's Jason. He's like, "Hey, I'm Jason. Do you remember me from this?" I said, "You're a smart guy." I said, "I remember you because the last time I talked to him was 1997 or 98. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I remember you completely." And I said, "You're a smart guy. Reach out to me and we'll connect." And he ended up coming over and hanging out for about 4 hours. We just caught up on what we've both been doing for the last 25 years. Cool. And he moved out of Michigan and lived all over the place and landed back in Michigan and he was surprised. One, he started watching my videos and he's like, "That guy looks really familiar." And he goes, "Oh yeah, 25 years ago, we worked on some projects together and used to play video games together and stuff." And then we all went our separate ways. Well, I didn't. I stayed here.
Well, it's crazy how much the community is actually really can be a small world. Like before we went live here, we were talking and you mentioned that you were helping someone land a job. I'm like, I literally was talking to that person like a week later, and like I didn't realize he was talking about you were the one that was actually helping him. Yeah.
And there he is. So
that's awesome.
Exactly. It's kind of cool, to connect. And it's I was at that Huntress event today, and I even mentioned to people, I said, I seen a couple of people I thought raised their hand. I said, tell me if anyone was part of the early 2600 meetups from Ann Arbor. And there was a crowd of people. I didn't get to talk to all of them. I said, if anyone's heard of Rubicon, and Rubicon was a wild hacker conference that didn't last very long. There's only evidence of it in some pictures, Wikipedia, and maybe some police reports because it got shut down hard.
Oh my gosh.
But and there he is. He was part of it too. So it's just kind of cool, catching up and hanging out with people and things like that. So yeah, this is full circle. And I met Dakota actually, like we talked online, but met him at Vid Summit. 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. Yeah, so it was kind of cool, and I don't think either of us realized. Did we communicate beforehand we went there?
No, I think
we just saw each other.
I'm like, hey, look, I know that guy.
Yeah, that was really cool.
You had interviewed me before.
Yeah, so. I had you on the channel before. We had talked before, and but yeah, no, and then just from there, it's kind of cool just to. The different connections you make and that we made and stuff like that. So
yeah, I do like his update. Definitely police reports.
Police reports. That's awesome.
Yeah, Rubicon was. I wish we had more security stuff, but there's hope I have because at this event I was at today, there were probably 60 people, IT professionals in the area. And when in the previous years, when we had tried to get people together, and granted, Huntress is a unique situation because they're such a big company and a lot of people use their product. Them saying, hey, we're going to have a free event that we're going to feed you. You get to go kick a football at Ford Field.
That's pretty cool.
That's an attraction, to come. So we're down there on the field and having fun. And it wasn't like all those salesy things. They actually were showing how attacks work and showing stuff. It was cool. It was good. And they also, and this is so important for anyone listening that runs events, anyone, please. First, no loud music. Second, between the pitches, long periods, like 15, 20 minutes where all of us could just BS.
Exactly. Because that's half the reason you go to those events, is to network with people and make those connections. No, absolutely. And when you have loud music, you can't hear each other talk. So you don't want to talk. And and when you don't have time to actually, you're going from one speaker to another, you can't actually connect and you just listen to sales pitches the whole time.
Yeah. And one of the things that people were asking me, and this is part of the talk that me and my business partner, Jason Slago, gave, one of the questions that came up was well, how do you keep up with all this or how do you do it? I'm like, honestly, I said, me and Jason happen to be up, giving this talk, but the old adage of dig the well before you're thirsty, before you have an incident problem, go hang out with a bunch of people. And I'm like, you're in a room full of people you don't look at them as your competitors, look at them as, more your peers and more people to have conversations with. We ended up just BSing with a lot of people. I was BSing with people right until I had to go to get you from the airport. We're just hanging out, talking about how we do things, what goes wrong. Client horror stories are always fun. And once you kind of get in that whole knowledge sharing space and in person, it's hard, especially I'm sorry if you live in a very rural area where there's not as many people, but it's a good way to level up your skills. And I've been trying to figure out how to build a better meetup here in Detroit. Because as Jason had pointed out before, when me and him were talking, Detroit's not known for its tech. I mean, we're the automotive capital. So that's what we're really known for. There's not, as much as tech does have a driving force in automotive, it's not really, there's not community here for that.
No. And, I've gone to a few conferences over the years and I've been looking to kind of span those out. And I noticed you don't really have too many of them over here, up here. A lot of almost all of them happen in Vegas. Let's just be honest there, which is great and all, but it's not really intuitive to bringing people together. You know,
you got where the conferences happen are Vegas and Florida. Those are the two places.
Some in Texas I've noticed lately.
Yeah, a couple Texas, in Austin. Yeah, there are a couple in Austin, Texas too. Yeah. But it's one of those things in your career, getting to know more people and reconnect with this. I've been spending more time trying to get connected with people. That's why I've been hey, he's staying at my house here the next couple of days. We're just gonna hang out and do stuff, and he's gonna be introduced to the people I know in this area, so it's kind of fun.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about career right now because that's what I do. But having those connections can really pay off in the long run. But yeah, because you never know, like tomorrow you might lose your job, and if you have those connections, you're going to be able to find work really quick. Just like I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, like that person that you are able to help, they were in that job for years, and all of a sudden it just went away, like no heads up. And because of the connections he had with you and other people, he was able to find a job quickly. So, and there's not just finding jobs. It's like, okay, when you have a problem, you have actually a support network you can reach out to and stuff like that.
Well, and I can share these because this is stuff I post on LinkedIn. So many of you might have followed like IT Pro TV, and then it was acquired by another company, and you had the same core group of people that were producing content. So a lot of you probably said, hey, I watched IT Pro TV, or I can't remember the name, ACI Learning?
Yeah, ACI Learning.
ACI Learning. But when they cut ACI Learning, I shared out a post on LinkedIn. But by coincidence, some of the people that work for ACI Learning were at Wild West Hacking Fest, where I was at. And I made sure to get their phone numbers.
Nice.
So the moment I seen the post that they had lost their jobs, I messaged the people I knew and started connecting them. I was like, hey, I said, I know you're in a situation right now. I know you lost your job. I said, sorry to hear that. If you need something, let me know. I said, I have some contacts. I said, I said, when you come up for air, you sorted out whatever cleaning out the desk looks like, I was a little bit nicer and kind of a nice conversation. I said, just reach out. And they said, thanks. I'm going to go dark for a little while. Cause what they said, I don't want to talk right now. I said, fine. About a week later, they reached out. They said, all right, I don't have a job anymore. I've come to the terms.
Yeah.
But cool. You reached out to me. Who do you know? And I was like, oh, I know these people, this person, and let's chat about it. And,
nice.
I send connections to them. I got someone today that they posted on LinkedIn, someone I know personally, and their company did some cutbacks, and nice person. So I'll once again share it. But a lot of it's connecting with people. That's a huge piece of it.
Absolutely.
Ooh, here's a fun tech question. I want to access web interfaces from outside, but I don't want to edit my reverse proxy every time I change a service. A jump host uses too many resources. Chasm doesn't have anything. What else? I don't know. I usually just, I see someone suggested right here, like Tailscale. I have all kinds of web interface stuff. One, I don't care about a reverse proxy on like all my SureNAS things. Like, who cares? So a VPN is kind of the answer when you are
really, yeah. I mean, there's really not too many other options out there that are at least easily deployable.
So. Right. I mean, commercially, there's tools that do it, but do you want to, are you like for business use case, I can go on about commercial tools, but I don't know that you want to pay that.
Exactly.
If you're asking like from a Homelab standpoint, VPN is kind of a solution. I mean, if you want to get fancy, and I think, who's done a video on it? Our friend, Jim's Garage. He did some traffic videos.
Yeah.
You can build traffic. So when you're building all your Docker containers, you can just put one more line in your Docker container to add to traffic to pull in the configuration to build a reverse proxy for everything you set up. Yeah. Like, by the way, that's beyond. Tom doesn't write Docker stuff like that. If you go to lawrencesystems.com, you go to Creators We Love, you'll find Jim's Garage. Right. And he's got a whole bunch of videos on that. By the way, there's also the Bearded IT Dad, who's got a YouTube channel as well. I try to share on all the channels. So there's, without knowing the context, Tailscale is like the dead easy answer that someone had here. Yeah. Yeah, we try to do a little bit of tech support when we're doing the live streams sometimes, as you know. Yes. you've been in the live streams.
I was going to say, I've watched quite a few of your live streams. It's always a good time, always good advice. My boss has actually walked in and I've had your live stream up and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm learning here. This is valuable information.
Yeah. Because some of the discussion we had while we were standing around in Fort Field, we all went through the same path. Well, this company was, they're roughly the same size as us. So they were asking like how we manage. I think we have somewhere between 70 and 80 businesses we're managing IT for. Someone's like, so how do you manage device counts on that? And I'm like, it's a nightmare. That's how.
Yeah.
Oh, so you haven't figured it out either. I was like, no. I mean, we're starting, and I'm personally not directly involved in this, but we are building a tool. They're called RPA tools for robotic process automation. REWST, Roost, is one of the ones that we use. And it's about building, it's like you have to build these programming tools that connect all these things together. By the way, N8N, I'm going to be talking to a friend about that in 2 weeks. That's a fully open source one that it lets you build entire pipelines. Picture, what's that one tool? that Zapier. How you
Oh,
can
yes.
N8N is like Zapier, where you can start gluing things together. But one of the things you can glue it to is a locally hosted Llama.
Really?
So then you can give it the ability to control other
interesting.
things. Now, the downside, of course, is Llama does get things wrong. Matter of fact, someone had mentioned earlier, the reason this person said, say, I'm still in CET here in Sweden. We were doing a live stream with some of the testing, and we said, what's the time? I said, if it's 4 o'clock here. And the AI got it all wrong. It told me
I was watching that one. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah.
So AI is not the solution for everything. So it's almost scarier to attach a random AI bot to
like physical stuff in the real world,
because it may do something unpredictable.
Oh my goodness, that is a little bit scary still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a problem. So
yeah, it's definitely I wouldn't do it. A llama with DeepSeek, and then tie it back into the real world. Oh my gosh.
How do you VPN into the fridge at home for lunch? There's probably some IoT fridge you can VPN into.
There is.
If there's something I don't think is necessary, is that my fridge be connected to the internet.
Yeah, no, I literally was looking at toasters the other day and I saw IoT toasters. I'm like, my toaster doesn't need to have a brain. Does not need to be hacked.
So you're at the Cisco Live event, you said?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was actually a really fun event. So last year, I don't think I'm going to go this year, but last year was like my 3rd year in a row going. My 1st year speaking at it, giving career advice, and we had some pretty big names, from Cisco Press and stuff up on the stage with me. It was a fun networking event. All pun intended. Though Cisco is much more than networking nowadays. That was a really fun event to go to just see kind of that bleeding edge of like what's coming out in the industry. For networking, cybersecurity, AI was like at everyone's booth. Like, I mean, it turned into a drinking game at one point. You see how long you get into a presentation before someone mentioned AI. Everyone had to do a round of shots then. But
too much AI stuffed in everything.
It is right now. But it's cool to see some of the other technologies that are coming out right now. Stuff that I will probably never implement in my lifetime just because it's just so out there, but it's cool to see what's happening and try to keep up with the trends and stuff. So
yeah, and once again, you get to connect with a lot of people because even myself, even though I don't use a lot of Cisco, the event of connecting with a bunch of like-minded network engineering people.
Well, and that's me. Like I work for an ISP and we are solely a Juniper shop. We do nothing but Juniper, but I still go to Cisco Live because Juniper doesn't really have an equivalent event. Let's be honest. So, and anyone who's cool in networking goes to Cisco Live, it seems like.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of people. It is probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
If your toaster isn't on a VPN, will fill a browning tank and doesn't just turn into existing bread brown. Yeah. Oh man. I like the picnic network. Android fridge with the camera inside. Very odd.
I've seen those and I don't know how I feel about that.
There's not, like, I only started getting into smart home, if you want to call it that, because I'm using Home Assistant because it's self-hosted.
Exactly. No, and see, I don't run Home Assistant yet. I've built it out a couple times.
It's an addiction.
Yeah, no, I've built it out a couple times and I've always ended up like getting frustrated and breaking it and starting back over.
That's also true.
Yeah, but that's also the reason I don't have many IoT devices yet. It's just because I don't want to just have it all out there. I will admit, like, my studio has the most amount of IoT because, like, I have like buttons on my desk when I go to sit down and record. I push and lights turn on, lights turn off, air conditioners turn off, that kind of thing. Yeah, I saw that as soon as I walked in here.
Yep, Zigbee switch.
And yeah, but no, that is actually on my to-do list, is to build out a Home Assistant server, and I'll probably get bit by the bug.
Yeah, once you get into it, it's kind of like this ramped up addiction to where you want to pull out things in there. And we don't have time in this trip, but maybe another trip you come out here. So we all talk about this. Well, what do we all say as IT people? I'm going to go retire. I'm going to go off grid, right?
Oh,
I'm going to go do this, right? Well, then there's Kevin, and I'm going to bring him on the channel sometime. He's one of my tech friends, and he's just great guy.
Yeah.
He did it. He bought some acreage. Now he still has his house in civilization,
Right.
but he also owns some acres outside of civilization where he is not on the grid, and he runs it with Home Assistant. So he's got solar. Home Assistant.
Right. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, and he loves talking about his setup. So what I want to do is I'm going to go off the grid with Kevin, and we're going to go hang out there. And he's got Starlink, so that's how he gets internet when he's there. But I'm going to go down. It's about 3 hours from here. So it's not too far, because you go 3 hours south of here and you are in the middle of nowhere. Like cell phone service doesn't work up there. You can't use a cell service. So it's kind of a cool property he's got. Cool. And so I'm going to go down there, but he has all of his automation. It manages his water management systems. There's a bunch of little things it has to do. He also likes to monitor what's going on when he's not there. But I believe he's got on the edge of the property a gated access too. So you got to use gated access to get in to his property. But it's cool, and it's just like
that is cool.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been diving into automation more and more, and not just like physical automation, but also in the cloud and a bunch of other things. And that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. Setting up automated processes.
Yeah. Should everyone be getting into DevOps to set up KH from scratch instead of using it? That's a tough one. I guess not everything DevOps is Kubernetes, by the way.
No, it is not. And that's like a mistake a lot of people make a lot of the times. That's a tough one though.
You have to figure out where your career path is taking you. But I want to lie. I mean, we do some at CNWR. We have the standard MSP stuff we do. The other side, there's a couple of people doing some specialized stuff. If you actually spent time figuring out who Jason Slagle is, you would notice he may have wrote a book on I think Puppet. He was the Puppet maintainer for BSD. So we are still doing. There is, and people are like, oh, isn't Puppet old? I will tell you, we make a lot of money doing Puppet because that's there. So if you know the target area, but because we know Puppet, because we know some of those pipeline automation and how we build things and how we're automating, and this is a very large scale company that we're doing this for, the concept in your head is the important part. Because I always extrapolate from the concept and figure out the basis of it to do things. So if you're thinking at a fundamental level, it's not just learning Kubernetes, but it may not be. If you find it approachable and you happen to get at Kubernetes, absolutely probably pursue that.
It really just depends on the career path you want to go into. And also not as much today with remote work and stuff, but also sometimes geographical locations. I've noticed, like if in a certain geographical metropolitan area, a lot of companies use similar types of services and stuff. So
this is an easy question. So if you go to my website, the Lawrence Systems is just a YouTube channel. All consulting goes to CNWR. So CNWR is the consulting side. That's where all of the employees are that do that. So in terms of if you wanted to hire us, even though you're landing on this Lawrence Systems page, just because people know it, you're actually, and it says so when you click on the hire button, it says this is being sent to CNWR. So CNWR is for legal reasons here. The way it works is Lawrence Systems does not even carry the liability insurance to do IT work anymore. So there's no point in me doing that. And I also don't want to compete with myself because I'm also an owner of CNWR. So everything goes under the CNWR umbrella because we've got a good group of techs that can, we architect and handle things. It's more than just Tom. There's 23 technicians working at CNWR. So just reach out that way and engage. We can do some work outside the US. There are scope limits. So reach out to us and we'll just have a conversation about it. We're very open and transparent about everything. Obviously, I put it all on YouTube. Let's see. I just added license plate readers to my front gate. So far, it works well. It's kind of neat. I don't know if you know this. UniFi's got dedicated cameras that are specialty license plate readers.
I've seen those actually, and those are pretty interesting. And it's becoming a bigger trend. Actually, at the ISP I worked, the local police department has deployed some of those throughout town. And it's kind of cool to see how they work and all connect back together. And they seem to be actually pretty efficient. They do a really good job.
Yeah. There's and maybe if you have time, I'll drive around the island. There's an island in the Detroit River, and that's how they keep track of who's coming and going off the island. Really? It's where the wealthy people live. That's why it's a cool place to go. I can't afford to live on the island, and But it's kind of.
It sounds like a TV show.
It does.
The island.
The island. Yeah, there's 2 bridges that go on the island, but they got cameras that track all the license plates that work with the local PD. And we know because prior to the bridge being sold, the bridge, there's 2 bridges on the island. There's a public bridge and a private bridge. The private bridge was our client before they sold it. And there's only, he's number like 11. There's only 11 large private bridges that cover public roadways.
Wow.
So it's weird. And the 2 of them are in Michigan. So the not everyone knows this, but the bridge that goes to Canada, what's that thing? Ambassador Bridge, that's a privately held bridge, just owned by a private individual.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's the only international crossing attached to America that's owned by a private individual, which means America's not allowed to inspect it. It's privately held.
Wow,
it is in an international no man's land. It's a very unique situation. And this, it's just weird situation with it. You wouldn't think a private bridge would have a lot of electronics, but they had a whole server. They have a barge with the servers on it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's its own story as to why they had that. So it's not Babilo Island, but that's different. It's an island called Gros Seal. Babilo was a interesting island. That was a recreational island. So they had like what do you call it? Like Cedar Point or Six Flags, which are all the same company now. I don't know if you know, they all bought each other. They all became one big mega company, but it was an amusement park. And cool. You used to get on the Babilo boat and ride to Babilo Island. That was a big thing in Detroit before that all closed. But now Gros Seal is it's kind of just this wealthy island. It's the Gros Seal Country Club on there, of course, golf courses and stuff like that, was I think they spent, there's a whole history page on it, and I think they spent like $12 million in the 20s building the golf course. It was one of the first golf courses with automated irrigation. So there's some kind of, because there's so much wealth over there. Like it's crazy. There's there's some massive houses on that island.
That's crazy.
It was actually kind of funny because our game when we were really young is, can we get our truck around the island without the police pulling us over and asking us why we're on the island?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, kind of funny. We could live on an island. It's not that much. Okay, so humble brag there. I got it, honey. All right, we got money now. We're good. My wife on here. Let's get back on to tech topics. We got to.
Yeah.
Tom will wander around because I have a hobby of liking history stuff.
That's cool. No.
I know that with a lot of the clients. Current project I'm doing is getting communication to my vehicle's modem, which eventually need the plate and serial modem. I'm a diesel battery. Oh, interesting. What would be really cool is, have you seen any of the Meshtastic stuff?
Yeah.
It's got a really long range. And if you're talking about serial small amounts of data, that might be an interesting way if you have to move the vehicle around over several miles.
Yeah, over several miles, and that's all unlicensed and stuff.
Yeah,
because the other way of doing that is like through ham. And
you run into license bans at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and then you can go crazy in like the whole Starlink mobile and cellular, but that's not. I don't know. I've deployed those kind of systems before, and they're not as all as what you think they would be.
We got a message from Matt on the back end, and he's right. He says you need to build 3D printed NAS. 3D?
Oh, me?
Yes.
No, I am planning on that. No, I'm gonna 3D print the case and then build it all out. Sorry. Yeah. But no, that is something I'm really looking forward to. Like I've already kind of started designing and mocking it up, and I'm gonna try to build as many of the components as I can, which really all I can build is the case. I mean, let's be honest, but still, I think that'd be cool. And I'm going to soundproof it because my goal is to have it on my desk in the recording studio and everything. But no, I think I'm going to go for an 8-bay. I'm going to try to do an 8-bay NAS. So.
Yeah, and he'll document on his channel, so like and subscribe to the Bearded IT Dad.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely something. And I want to do it. I want to try to like put the print files out there for everyone, so if like, hey, this is how I did it. If you want to do it, here's everything you need to do. Yeah,
because there's going to be some challenges that we don't even know yet.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, 45 drives, and I got to at some point edit the video. I've been to their manufacturing place of how, and their manufacturing place is amazing.
I know. I've seen videos of it. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it's a cool place. And what's interesting about them is 3D print a lot of components. They have an entire just walls of 3D printers because even though they're metal fabricating the NASs, they also have a lot of little things like the little, I don't know what you call it, like guides that hold the drives in because they make a toolless case. So you can get really close. I mean, the tolerances are super tight on the metal for where the drives slide in, but the little holders, the little lips on them that hold the pressure on the drive so they don't have any wiggle room. Those are all 3D printed, which is actually cool because I believe they have all the STL files available.
I was gonna say they have all the STL files on their website. Yeah, I've actually seen that.
Yeah, so you can just like if you ever have a component failure, you could A, get one from them, or B, if you have a 3D printer, go for it.
No, I've really gone down the rabbit hole of 3D printing. I bought a Bamboo Labs 3D printer, and I like to print practical things. And like I actually started printing like stuff for the knock I work in, and my boss saw me like bringing in these 3D printed parts for actual like production things. Like there was these fiber splitter enclosures that we only could find on eBay, and they're like a couple $1,000s. I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's pretty basic. I could 3D print that. And eventually he's like saw it, like, okay, we're buying a 3D printer for the company now. Like
that's cool. It would probably, I'm assuming you would go with TrueNAS and ZFS.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. TrueNAS, ZFS. Yeah, absolutely. No, I run production TrueNAS at work, and it's just, I love TrueNAS. So
I can't say enough good things about TrueNAS. I've been a long time user of it, and I've talked about it a little bit on the channel. I mean, when you see me taking pictures of those more than petabyte storage servers, and we do a lot of work with some of the automotive industry, but some of the movie industry. The movie industry actually needs more storage than the automotive. And but both of them we sold petabytes of storage, but it's running TrueNAS. TrueNAS just works. It's really solid.
Yeah, and the biggest problem I have with building my own NAS is finding an ITX board that has enough SATA headers on it.
Yeah,
that can be difficult. And just before the show, we were talking about the
little
NAS,
expanders,
the little expanders, you know. And I think that's going to be the way I do it. But also like I also want to do 10 gig network on it too. And in such a small, 3D printer, my build plate is, 256 millimeter square. Getting all that in that small of an area is presenting its own challenges. So I'm definitely excited to start doing that project.
Yeah. Mod Case Mass, I believe it is 3D printable 13 bay NAS. Looks really nice.
Cool.
So that might be a way to start finding in there. So I didn't know there was that much on there. So this is interesting.
Yeah, no, there's actually quite a few people that have 3D printed their own NAS, and a lot of them end up getting bigger printers. I want to try to do it on my basic like Bamboo Labs A1. I don't have the mini, I have the actual A1, and I want to try to like design it all myself.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Oddly, if what Tom went to school for, machine tool and die, and I did some CAD classes. I did not have like a bunch of. I had very limited. I did they had a Turbo Pascal class I took. So I'm dating myself here. As if the gray hair doesn't let you know. Tom did Turbo Pascal class, which was extremely basic, not very. I didn't retain a lot of it because I never used it. Yeah. And I did some COBOL. I had a class on COBOL. So cool. COBOL is a very wordy language. I'm not using my COBOL skills anymore.
I was gonna say, have you done anything with COBOL like
no
at all?
Like, no. Yeah. My career path didn't really take me. I probably should have gotten more into programming, but I just didn't. I ended up working for small computer businesses and repairing. Like I worked in the retail side of fixing people's computers, and I got into the networking side, which landed me in the enterprise job side, which led me to 20. It's crazy to think about where both me and Jason, they asked us like how long ago did we start our companies, and technically CNWR was spun out of a company called Toledo ISP, and that's CNWR started in 1995 in March. So it is now. That makes it 30 years old. Is that?
Yeah. 30
years old. Yeah. So CNWR is 30 years old. And I started Lawrence Systems in 2003. So that now is 22 years old. So yeah.
I almost went down starting my own company route when I got into tech, because the area I lived in was a really small, like rural area in Oregon. And pretty much when people like to get into the tech industry in the town I lived in, someone had to die because people were in the careers for life. They were lifers. And I hated that when I first started, because some of the people, I'm going to be honest, weren't even good at it. They just since they were there, the company didn't want to do the change. And so I was like, fine, no, I can't get a job. I'm going to start my own company. And I did actually do website design for several years. And I don't know, that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. And then finally I landed a job and the rest is history from there. So
the cool thing is, so my building in Southgate is almost done and being emptied out. So my original office, which I showed him it, he's like, "Oh, this is kind of a cool place." So like it was for years. It's kind of empty now. But I'd work with some recyclers to get rid of things. And one of the things that was really cool, the guy that's recycling, turns out we had some mutual friends he meets with, and I might go meet up with him sometime to meet some of these people, because one of the guys, his name was Jerry. He used to come into in the 90s when I worked at Southgate Computers. He used to come in there. It's like a retail computer store, and we'd always BS. The guy was a pretty smart guy. He worked for the phone company, but I was like, Jerry is still tinkering with computers, and he's like 88 years old and still sharp. And I'm like, so Jerry didn't just retire. He's still, so he goes, yeah, he goes, we go have breakfast once every couple of weeks with like a couple of people that I'm like, oh, it's cool. I might go see some of those guys, because it's kind of neat. I went to the Michigan users group, mug.org. If you go on mug.org, you'll find a video where Tom talks about XCP&G, but it's an old, I mean, just by the 3-letter domain, you can kind of guess that this organization has been around, but it's the Michigan users group for computers group. It's a bunch of old Linux, well, I should say Unix guys, because some of these guys are also in their 80s.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a pretty big, so it's kind of cool when I find some of these people that are still sharp and still doing it that many years later. They have stories to tell.
That's a joke with my wife. I'm never going to retire. I'm just going to move on to a different project.
Do you have any experience with dial-up tunneling between UniFi and 40?
Goodness.
I have a UniFi Express 4G WAN and feel the problem is no public IP. I don't think you mean dial-up tunneling. I think you're just referring to VPN.
Yeah,
I thought we were talking about old stuff, and
exactly. I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, dial-up. Gosh, that's
yeah. But if you mean, I don't know exactly what 40net supports. UniFi supports WireGuard, so WireGuard is WireGuard and OpenVPN are very friendly to going through, because you're behind a CGNAT. They're very friendly for that. So yes, WireGuard is supported. Yes, OpenVPN is actually easier to configure on UniFi, because the UniFi device itself can act as a client. I have a persistent, because it's easier to do. WireGuard is tricky because the UI leaves a lot to be desired in UniFi right now. They just haven't fleshed out their WireGuard implementation, but their OpenVPN implementation works fine. Nice. So you can take if you set up probably 40net with OpenVPN and you do an export of the OpenVPN file, you can import that file. See, the problem that UniFi has is, let's say I have on the other side 8 or 9 different networks I want to route back. There's not really any way when you set up the WireGuard tunnels to do the normal, like all the different tunnel networks.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, UniFi is missing that.
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be in the future that they're going to have it, because it has the ability, and you could hand create a file for it, but it's kind of tedious. But if you go into something like pfSense or probably a 40net, and you build all the routes, and then you create the export file, which will have all the route pushes in there. When it imports it, it pushes all the routes. So it actually works.
I will admit, UniFi is really starting to pick up the game, though,
yes,
with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just joining. Thought it was Jason for a second. Jason is. He always wears a hat and he's got a big beard. Yep. So there is the commonality there. Well, Jason. Well, the things like, where you see Jason, his hat's always offset. He never puts it on straight. He always offsets it a little bit. That's it. The hat's on straight. So, and Jason has a collection of CNWR hats. So, he also has a Sniff Networks Not Drugs hat too. So
I'm gonna say any of your audience, or the audience that came from my YouTube channel, they're probably like, why am I not wearing my normal DEF CON hat?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because I don't know. I got that hat years ago, and just out of habit, I've worn it in every video. Like the 2 times I haven't, like I've worn this hat instead. Someone was like, where's your hat? Like, who are you?
So OpenVPN and OpenWT are investing in UniFi. So OpenWT, I think, is a really cool project, but I would call it more of a project that if your heart's into tinkering, you're going to be able to tinker way more, and may probably have to tinker way more with OpenWRT.
I think OpenWRT is great for the home labber.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're just kind of tinkering with stuff, I just don't know if I could bring myself to run in like a production environment.
Yeah. And there's people please correct me in the comments, or you can correct me on this. I think GLINet uses OpenWRT.
I do think,
but a flavor of it, because they put some.
They put a scan on. They scan it pretty much, and
they do some of the tinkering for you to give you an interface that's better.
No, they definitely do.
Oh, my wife's saying I'm not sharing with them. I see people talking about tacos. I don't know if that means we're getting Mexican, but. We're going to Detroit tomorrow, so we'll just go to Wyandotte today, which is closer. We'll find somewhere to eat. There's good places. We're going to do that. So we got 4 more minutes of questions that we'll answer, because then food time, food and chill out time. Nice. So, you know what? When there's going to be some topics. So I had a really good conversation with my friend, and I will have to leave his name out of it. Because it would identify too much, but it's an interesting conversation about backups and restore point objectives and things like that. And I thought it might be an interesting conversation, but the really big picture is it brought a really good discussion on how you do SQL backups at scale. And this company has a lot, thousands of SQL servers, and they're looking for stuff, but there's also, the reason they can't, the customer does not want to accept the reason they can't reach their goals for how they want to restore something has a lot to do with the fact that the way they architect it. So there might be a fun discussion. I'll see if I can anonymize the data enough to talk about that. Because I like architecture discussions because they're more interesting. Like, customers come to you with, I want to do this. But sometimes if their solution isn't architected in a way that makes it easier, you're trying to solve the problem at the back end when
you're creating more issues. Really,
right. You need to pay down the technical debt that brought you here. And I'm trying to figure out how I can turn it into some good learning lessons.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. That's some of the consulting I do. And this is like the DR plan I talked about. I think it was last week. I posted one about disaster recovery between data centers. And I mean, this is a situation where we accept that if there's a data center failover, it's not instant, not for what these guys. No. Yeah. But it's possible. And it's how close of a time can you get it, what architectures are in there. I did the video specifically how XCP-ng handles it, but a lot of it comes down to, and this is what's great, they had not great really, but great because of how it's worked out now. They had a data center fire.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, literally fire, like data center gone. And they had a plan, but it took them several days to get up and running.
Right.
So what their goal is now is, how do we keep a data center and how can we get it down? And I think we've shaved it down from several days to a 1-day restore plan.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Which, especially because this is a company that can afford to be in 2 data centers.
I was going to say, that's the thing. Anything's possible if you want to throw money at the problem. But, you come to a point, working for an ISP, that is definitely something that's top of mind always for me is, your backup scheme and your time to restore. And, we have, like, for the ISP I work for, we have different levels of backups. We have our local on-site, we have off-site, then we have like our tertiary and so on. That's, if we have to go that deep, we're talking days to get operations back up and going. But at least there is plans in place.
Yeah. And it's in the concept. I mean, there's 2 different ways to do it. And I realized I did this to keep the scope of the video I did. The video is 12 minutes long. So obviously there's certain things not covered. Yeah. And I said that in the video, like, I'm not covering the networking because that just is out of scope and it would make the video substantially longer. But I realized a ton of people, because let's see the reaction you have. So do I just stretch the layer 2 across 2 data centers? No, you do not stretch layer 2 across 2 data centers. Apparently, I do need to explain the networking.
Wow.
Because people want to know how they VPN, like when they're doing some of these, like, do I build a VPN that can stretch layer 2? And I'm like, no, that is not the ideal way to do it. There's ways to handle this. And so I'm going to do one where I expand out on the networking. So I'll do a little bit deeper dive on here. But to pivot to this question, because I'll answer these last few questions. How will TrueNAS actually scale out? Gloucester FS out of the picture. So this is a fun problem, especially if you follow the development TrueNAS. They put, when they started, several years ago building out TrueNAS Scale as a scale out system. GlusterFS seemed promising. Then Red Hat decided it's not, and they decided it's not going to be a future project, and essentially GlusterFS just kind of died.
Right.
So when you've put a bunch of dev time into it, what do? Well, you don't necessarily have anything more than we're going to deprecate these packages, and I guess we're not finishing our scale out project. So there has not been a new answer announced, because I don't know what the new answer is, and I don't think they do either. They're being hesitant before they do it, because there's not any easy. Now, pie in the sky, what else is out there besides Gluster that would work? I think would work with ZFS. My guess is Linbit. If you look at Linbit, another open source project that does synchronization, that's a possibility. Some people may go, what about Ceph? Ceph is a completely different animal, and Ceph does not sit on top of ZFS. Gluster is a way you can take existing. Actually, it's agnostic. It can work with ZFS. It can work with EXT. It doesn't matter the file system. Yeah. Gluster says, I need to have these objects in both places. Awesome. Linbit does that same feature. So I don't know if Linbit works with ZFS. Maybe someone can comment on it. But there's not really a clear path on when TrueNAS Scale will be scale out, even though I know what they named it for.
That will be interesting.
Yeah. I use Acronis for many large clients, restore different hardware, go universal restore, save my command. Well, the nice thing is everything we're doing is a virtualization. So the different restore to different hardware is for the scenario for my client is an issue. They're running XCP-ng at site A, XCP-ng at site B, and I was showing the DR utility built into. And matter of fact, I made sure when I did the video, the DR system that does the site replication was launched in 2016. So is it a mature product? Yes, it's had 9 years of development. Yeah. And so it's a not only viable solution, the solution's been around for 9 years, which I kind of joke, like it's kind of like dog years, tech years and dog years. Like, that's a long time for a solution to even still exist. Yeah. Because Gluster, I don't think Gluster made it to 9 years old.
Oh gosh.
So yeah. Well, I'm not saying you can't do layer 2 extensions, but there are better ways to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible, and I've seen it done. Kind of scared me a little bit, but it's just not really the best.
Yeah. So it's not always the best solution, because I've seen. I'll mention this is a weird setup, but for their setup, it was a unique solution. It was an ISP. Wireless ISP. They were using MikroTik, and they only had 25 sites, but their idea, and it was functioning because it was only 25 sites, and they very limited what was on the network. I can't remember the name of it, but there's an RFC paper on it, and it's oddly supported in MikroTik. I couldn't name another device that supports it, but it does like a specialized layer 2 tunnel across it. So what you can do in MikroTik, I was reading up the write-up on it, and someone can name it if they remember the RFC on here, because the guy was just messaging back and forth in the forums. What they can do on the MikroTik is they can take several ports on all the MikroTiks at all 25 of these remote locations, and several groupings of ports act as one switch, even though they're all different. So it's a layer 2 extension, but it's not exactly like a normal VPN. There was an RFC someone wrote to do this. It's almost like an MC lag, but it bridges across locations. So it can go over routable, but then bring it back. And the reason they did it that way, all of their management was on the same IP range. You didn't have to go to each one. Yeah. So they could use different. It was a neat concept. And he says we never have a problem with it because they're top to bottom 100% MikroTik, and MikroTik supports this. So I'm like, weird.
And I don't know how well that would actually scale out though. Like, first
they had 25 sites, and they were in the middle of like somewhere in that desert area of the United States. I was like, that's not going to scale. They said, there's nothing. We've reached all the population. We don't really need to scale.
Yeah, exactly.
It reaches as many people will probably live in this area.
That's funny.
So you've reached what do they call that? It's that business term, TAM, total adjustable market. Everybody has internet now that wants internet. Oh man. So, all right, well, we'll end it with that. We'll see what we'll do. We're playing it by ear. We're just hanging out. He wants to have some fun, and it sounds like we're having tacos. I don't know.
Sounds good.
So we are going to go on the hunt for food. thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for participating and asking some questions and making this interesting. Head up to forums.lordsystems.com and have a more in-depth conversation. Head over to the Bearded IT Dad, like and subscribe to his channel.
Absolutely.
That's where you can find all kinds of videos and maybe even one he did with me and some other people. And like and subscribe. He's got some more guests on the way and all kinds of fun stuff. So thanks everyone, and we're out. End.